He was a visionary, a genius, a rebel who changed the world. But behind the sleek glass of the iPhone and the glowing Apple logo lies a story Apple would rather you never hear. A story of betrayal, obsession, cruelty, and the human cost of perfection. This is the side of Steve Jobs that doesn't make it into the keynote speeches, the side that nearly tore lives apart in the pursuit of something insanely great. Steve Jobs wasn't born into greatness. In fact, he was born to a young, unwed college student and given up for adoption. From the very beginning, rejection and identity would haunt him. He was taken in by Paul and Clara Jobs, a blue-collar couple in California, and from an early age, Steve showed signs of intensity far beyond his years. He was brilliant but also cold, even as a child. Teachers described him as manipulative. Friends called him magnetic and dangerous. By the time he co-founded Apple in his garage in 1976 with Steve Wozniak, Jobs had already mastered the art of control. But what most people don't know is that Jobs often took credit for Wozniak's technical innovations. He convinced Wozniak to build things for him and then downplayed his role in the media. Was ever loyal, never fought back publicly. But behind closed doors, resentment brewed. As Apple grew, so did Steve's obsession with design, with control, and with image. He demanded perfection from everyone but offered none of it in return. He berated employees, reduced people to tears, and fired staff in humiliating ways. Former team members remember him as charismatic, but also as a tyrant. One engineer recalled being screamed at for taking 2 days to solve a problem that Jobs insisted should have taken 1. And yet those who survived the storm often built products that changed the world. But perhaps the darkest chapter of Jobs' life wasn't in the boardroom, it was personal. In 1978, Steve Jobs fathered a daughter with his high school girlfriend, Kristen Brennan. Her name was Lisa, but Jobs denied she was his. Despite a DNA test proving paternity, he publicly disowned Lisa while at the same time naming Apple's next computer the Lisa. The hypocrisy was cruel, and it left lasting scars. Kristen struggled to raise Lisa on a modest income while Jobs sat atop a growing empire. Even when he was worth millions, he refused to help them. The man who preached love for simplicity could not show compassion for his own child. Jobs' cruelty wasn't random, it was selective. He had a binary worldview. People were either geniuses or bozos. You were either useful to his mission or discarded. Apple's first CEO, John Sculley, once his close ally, was turned against him. Eventually, the board ousted Jobs from his own company. And when it happened, he wept, but not for the people he hurt. For himself, he disappeared into the wilderness for years. Founded Next, bought Pixar, and through it all, his ego never dimmed. His cruelty became more refined, but never disappeared. When he returned to Apple in 1997, he came back as a savior and a shark. He gutted departments, slashed jobs, and famously told one room of employees, "You're all fired, and you know why, because I don't need any of you." Yet somehow, through that storm of fury and brilliance, Apple rose. Under Jobs, Apple gave the world the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, but the cost was immense. Burnt-out employees, sacrificed relationships, and a culture that worshipped one man's vision to the exclusion of empathy. He brought design to the forefront, yes, but also fear. And in Silicon Valley, his legacy created an archetype, the cruel genius. The idea that being great gave you the right to be monstrous. It wasn't until his final years when pancreatic cancer came for him that Steve Jobs began to soften. He reconciled with Lisa, married Lorene Powell, and started talking about love more than product launches. But even then, he refused conventional treatment. He believed in his own mind more than in medicine, and that choice may have cost him his life. Steve Jobs died in 2011. The world mourned. But most never knew the full story. The press remembered the innovator, but they forgot the daughter he abandoned, the employees he crushed, the truth behind the myth. Because in the end, Steve Jobs didn't just build Apple, he built an empire on obsession, on control, on pain. And though the world holds an iPhone in one hand, few ever ask who paid the price for its perfection.